It's been 4 years now since Total War Warhammer 2 released, and quite honestly, I'm bored. I'm ready to move on. We've played this game to death. We were all expecting to be playing Warhammer 3 by now, but of course, the delay came. So now we're stuck here in Warhammer 2 for probably another 6 months, with nothing new seemingly coming. They said in the OGRE Mercenary blog that this would be the final big update for Warhammer 2. So this is just a little bit of speculation and discussion on why OGRE Kingdoms would be great for Warhammer 2, and maybe if CA did plan to put them in but had to abandon the idea. Now recently in the Cathay Mechanics blog, there was this little settlement tooltip which has the sentence "when outside Ogre or Norscan homeland" on it, indicating that OGRE Kingdoms are going to be in the game at release, which makes it incredibly likely that they are going to be the pre-order DLC incentive for Warhammer 3. Which seems incredibly likely as well because we already have ogres in Warhammer 2, right? The models are made, they're already in the game, they're a good candidate for the pre-order DLC. But if they are going to do the pre-order DLC this way, then they're kind of going back to what they did with the first game, which was incredibly frowned upon. If you pre-ordered Warhammer 1, you would get the Warriors of Chaos DLC free, which people weren't a fan of because it was a finished part of the game ready to go, but it was just locked behind a paywall and as a pre-order incentive rather than just being in the base game as part of it. With Warhammer 2 it was a similar deal, but a little bit better because if you pre-ordered Warhammer 2 you would get Norsca for free in Warhammer 2. But you'd also get Norsca in Warhammer 1 now, before Warhammer 2's release. This was received much better and was a nice incentive and gave us something new to play with in Warhammer 1 while we waited for Warhammer 2. So this seemed like a good way to do it for Warhammer 3 as well. If you pre-order Warhammer 3, you can get OGRE Kingdoms free up until release. And alongside that, you'll get OGRE Kingdoms in Warhammer 2 now. That would be awesome, right? That would give us something exciting, something fresh to tide us over until Warhammer 3 arrives. But alas, that doesn't seem to be what's happening. They've said OGRE Mercenaries are the last thing they're putting in. Unless they were referring to OGRE Mercenaries as the OGRE Kingdoms on the sly, and were trying to tell us that this was coming, but without actually saying OGRE Kingdoms, who knows? Probably not, but you never know. It would certainly bring some life back into the game. We haven't had a new faction since Vampire Coast, so it's been a good while. We've got so many campaigns to play, but we've played them all now, right? We've played them a bunch of times. We've played with all these armies. We've played with all these units, all these campaigns on all these maps. We've done it all a million times. We're ready for something fresh. Now, there is one thing, though, that did kind of make it seem like maybe they had planned to put OGRE Kingdoms in Warhammer 2 at some point, but maybe changed their minds. And it's all to do with the campaign map itself in Mortal Empires. If we take a good look at the map, well, there's a lot of map there, right? It's a big rectangle. The top left corner is filled with stuff. The bottom left corner is filled with stuff. The bottom right corner is filled with stuff. But the top right corner is suspiciously empty. Legend of Total War had a theory that this was being saved for the Chaos Dwarfs and they'd make it into some kind of big Darklands area, which unfortunately as time has gone on has looked less and less likely. Especially as well, we have the Darklands in the game already, albeit a very thin slither of land. We've got the northern Darklands here with a few settlements, and there's also the southern Darklands as well. So the Darklands are already in the game, which leaves that big open space to the right as a big question mark. And if we take a look at this incredibly low-res version of an old world map, we see the Empire Kislev stuff on the left, we see the Darklands, which is a big space in the middle. We've only got this little thin slither, but then to the right of that, you have the mountains of the OGRE Kingdoms next to the Darklands. So how convenient that we have this big old space in the top right corner of our Mortal Empires campaign map where a bunch of OGRE Kingdoms mountains could go next to the Darklands. Obviously there's nothing actually here on the map if we remove the Fog of War, but it's got to make you wonder, no? Did they plan to put OGRE Kingdoms in Warhammer 2, but maybe had to ditch the idea because they ran out of time, because Warhammer 3 is coming and there's COVID around, which has obviously made everything harder? Who knows? Perhaps we will never know. Or perhaps CA are keeping this a big secret until it's ready. Probably not, but one can hope. The other case you could make for OGRE Kingdoms not being a pre-order race for Warhammer 2 is because in order to play them in Mortal Empires, you'd need to own both Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, because Mortal Empires only works in Warhammer 2 if you own Warhammer 1. So unless they're going to make it a Vortex-only faction, which seems incredibly unlikely, it would be a little bit of a jip to those who don't own both games. Although I think most people probably do own both games at this point. I don't think anybody just has Warhammer 2 or Warhammer 1. They probably have at least both, if not the DLCs as well. So alas, through all my hope that we'll get something fresh in Warhammer 2, because after all, they did say before they delayed that this would be the last thing. Maybe they didn't account for the delay. Maybe they didn't know they were going to delay when they wrote that blog saying that this is going to be the last thing. Maybe they will give us something. Who knows? Even a little bit of free LC, something just to jazz us up while we wait for Warhammer 3. Unless it's coming really early next year, like January, maybe February, then it wouldn't be so bad. But if we got to wait till like March, April time, that's a long time to keep riding the same campaigns and stuff that we have been for 4 goddamn years. Don't get me wrong, I've loved it. I love Warhammer 2. I'm really looking forward to Warhammer 3. I'm just a little bit dry now while I wait for Warhammer 3. So I'm bored and I'm ready for OGRE Kingdoms. Come on, CA. Just pop them in Warhammer 2. Can't be that difficult, right? Must be easy. Yeah, come on. Come on. Give us the ogres. Stop messing around. We're already going to have a lot to play with when Warhammer 3 does come along. We're going to have 6 new factions. We got Kislev, Cathay, Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, Sexman John. There's going to be a lot for us to play with, and that's going to be awesome. It's all going to be fresh. OGRE Kingdoms as well would be cool. We can't complain that there's going to be, too many factions to play or anything dumb like that. But giving OGRE Kingdoms as a 7th faction gives us lots to play, but it would be nice to get to know one of those in Warhammer 2 before we have to jump in to all the other 6 factions as well. But this is all hopeful speculation, like I say. I think OGRE Kingdoms will just be a pre-order DLC for Warhammer 3, and that's that. But we'll see. Maybe they've got something else up their sleeve. Who knows? Let me know what you think. Maybe in the meantime I need to look for an OGRE Kingdoms mod or something to tide me over. Or maybe just some other kind of mod. There is a Kislev mod which is pretty good, so I can play some Kislev in Warhammer 2. Although, of course, it's not actually Kislev, but it's a nice representation. How do you feel about Warhammer 2? How long have you been playing? I think if you're quite new to Warhammer 2, you've probably got a lot of content still to get through, so you still got some time. But if you're like me and you've been playing since Warhammer 2 was released and you've been playing Warhammer 1, things might be starting to feel a bit old to you. Let me know. I'm curious how the general public feels on this, because I know my perspective might be a little bit different because I have to spend so much time in this game as it is my job to be in this game. So for those who don't spend so much time in this game, are you still enjoying it after years and years of playing it? Or are you needing those DLCs all the time to keep it fresh and appealing? I know some people share the same opinion as me from what people have said in the Discord, but I'm curious to the wider opinion, so do let me know. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I shall see you in the future. Hopefully with some OGRE Kingdoms.